Hi, I'm Thomas Mason for Simpson Galleries in Houston, and today I want us to take a look at a 1967 screen print on acrylic by Andy Warhol titled Lincoln Center Ticket. So what I think is so interesting about this piece, what I think makes it so cool, is that it encompasses so much of what pop art and what Andy Warhol was trying to achieve at the time. So pop art emerged in the late 1950s and early 1960s as a movement that questioned the very foundations of the fine art establishment by introducing images of common, easily recognized, mass-produced objects, but in ways that are presented in new ways and new colors that blur the lines between what is high art and what are everyday mass-produced objects and what is advertising. The undisputed master of all of this was Andy Warhol. At its essence, much of Warhol's work makes us question what is and is not art. And I think Lincoln Center Ticket does that, and it answers the question very well. At first, this piece obviously presents as a work of art because of its size, because of its colors, because of the way it's framed. But it's also recognizable as a mass-produced ticket, like the type of paper ticket that we've all seen that come in large scrolls and are printed by the thousands. It invites the viewer to recognize it as a ticket and as a work of art. But it's clearly not just a ticket because it's way too big and way too colorful. It also has a very large and interesting green and blue field in the center of it, which, if you know artists, is pure Andy Warhol. And he would have expected people who looked at it to recognize it as an Andy Warhol. One of the interesting things about Andy Warhol is that he was interested as the artist, as an impresario, as a showman. And so he wanted people to recognize his works without his name having to be on them necessarily. And Lincoln Center does that. It shows you a ticket, it shows you a work of art, and it shows you an object made by someone that you recognize as the famous artist Andy Warhol. So Lincoln Center Ticket was made in 1967 at an interesting time in Warhol's career. In 1965, Warhol had famously, quote-unquote, retired from painting. Now, he never actually stopped painting, but his focus over the next decade did move to other forms of artistic expression and mass media, particularly film and printmaking. By 1967, his studio, which was known as the Factory, had begun concentrating almost purely on films and on printmaking. This was the context for the production of Lincoln Center Ticket. It's one of many things at once. It's a work of art by a famous artist that you recognize. It's a representation of a common mass-produced item. It's an advertisement for a film festival at an important high art establishment. For Warhol, it's all of these things at once, and there's no need to find a difference between them. It holds its tensions. Now, a final note on this particular example. Despite the fact that this might appear just like a regular poster advertisement, it is not. This version was produced in a limited edition and published by Leo Castelli Gallery, one of the most prestigious dealers in New York. It's one of only 200 that were printed on opaque acrylic, and it has an engraved signature, date, and numbering. It's also mounted in a custom welded acrylic frame that is most likely by Robert Kulicki, who was a famous framer and artist who worked at MoMA. So is this a work of art, or is this a depiction of a work of art? Well, yes, it's a work of art. It's also an advertisement. It's also a depiction of a paper ticket that is common and mass-produced. It's all of these things at once. But mostly, we can just see it as an unusually interesting object with beautiful colors, recognizable as by a great master, and one that is frankly pure cool and pure Warhol.